The late 1940s and early 1950s marked a period of great change in my life. It was a time of rebuilding after the war, and the world was beginning to feel more hopeful again. I had married just after the war ended, and our home was a reflection of the desire for peace, prosperity, and a return to normalcy. These years were filled with a blend of traditional homemaking values, but also the emerging influence of new appliances and modern conveniences. In 1947, life felt like a fresh start. The war had ended, and there was a sense of relief in the air. My husband and I had just settled into our first home, a modest house with a small kitchen and living room. The demands of homemaking felt familiar. Cooking from scratch, baking bread, and tending to the house with loving care. It was a time when we took pride in every task, even the mundane ones, because we knew how important it was to create a home that felt safe and welcoming. The 1940s were also a time when frugality was still at the forefront of life. I made do with what we had, always looking for ways to stretch a dollar. Canning fruits and vegetables from our small garden was a common practice, and leftovers were treasured and turned into something new. There was no waste in my home, and I took pride in making sure every meal was balanced and nutritious. I still remember the excitement of my first real refrigerator, which we bought in 1948. It wasn't the sleek modern model I would later see in stores, but it was a world of difference compared to the icebox we had before. I was able to store perishable items much longer, and that made a huge difference in the way I planned meals. The refrigerator was an essential part of our kitchen now, and I was grateful for it every day. As we moved into the early 1950s, I began to feel the winds of change. The war was a distant memory, and the world was moving forward with an optimistic sense of progress. The 50s brought with them a surge of new appliances that made homemaking less of a chore and more of a manageable task. One of the most exciting additions to our home was the washing machine. In 1950, I was finally able to purchase an automatic washing machine. It was a marvel. No more scrubbing clothes by hand on a washboard. No more boiling water on the stove. I could just load the machine, press a button, and let it do the work. This innovation was a game changer. Laundry no longer consumed my entire day, and I could focus on other things, like decorating our home and spending time with family. Around the same time, we got our first vacuum cleaner. It was a big, bulky machine, but it worked wonders compared to sweeping with a broom. The house stayed cleaner with far less effort, and I felt like I had gained hours in my day that I could now use for other activities. Fashion during this time was also shifting. I still wore dresses most days, often with an apron over them as I worked, but the styles were changing. The dresses were now more fitted and streamlined, with full skirts and smaller waists. I loved the elegance of the time, and I took pride in looking my best, even while doing housework. It felt important to maintain a sense of grace and order, and my appearance was a reflection of that. Looking back on these years, I see how much homemaking changed between 1947 and 1951. The tools I had to work with were slowly transforming, making everyday tasks easier and more efficient. But at the same time, the role of the homemaker was still deeply rooted in tradition. I knew the importance of keeping a clean, organized home, preparing meals with love, and nurturing the family. But with the arrival of new technologies, I felt that homemaking was becoming less about exhausting manual labor and more about managing a home with the help of modern conveniences. The early 50s marked the beginning of a new era in homemaking, one where efficiency and comfort could coexist. Looking back on these years, I am grateful for the progress that allowed me to work smarter, not harder. While it was still a busy time, I felt that I had more control over how I spent my days. It was a time of both nostalgia for the past and excitement for the future, and I cherished every moment of it.